Gene, I'll let you start.
Oh, Carol, you're in for a treat. I guess I should say welcome to QuickBooks Karaoke, because that's what it feels like we may be at. My name is Jean, and I curate leadership webinars for Nonprofit Quarterly. Welcome to those of you who are leading edge members, and welcome to those of you who are not. This is our annual special event with Greg Boston and QuickBooks Made Easy. We do this once a year in partnership with him, and it's his Mastering QuickBooks series. So just to be sure you know where you are, this is a 2-day series that's going to help you take your QuickBooks use to the next level. You do see on the screen there, it says desktop version. And we know sometimes that can be confusing because we have today and tomorrow for desktop users, and then Wednesday and Thursday for you online users. So Greg is reminding you of the distinct interface here.
If for any the desktop, and then I'll show them the online just in case. If yours looks like this, you're in the wrong webinar.
Right, but the good news is there's a webinar for you, and it's only 2 days away. So if for any reason you accidentally signed up for the wrong one, go back to your email confirmation and just email back to webinar@npq, and we'll get you registered for Wednesday and Thursday. If you're just a diehard and want to stay anyway, you're welcome to, but we do want to make sure that you also get into the proper session. So go ahead and email us back, and we'll get you re-registered. I see people already asking, is this being recorded? Yes, it is. So all of the paid registrants will get a recording a couple of days after the session with the slides and Greg's melodic voice. And I think I'm just going to hand it over to you, Greg, and we're here if you need any support. Thanks to all of you for being here. You're in good hands.
Sure. So, Gene, I think the reason why your voice is echoing is because it's coming out of the computer rather than your earbuds or whatever. So I think that's
okay. Why. I will correct that for the next break.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you.
All right. So can everybody hear me though? Do I sound good? I want to make sure that I sound good. Put something in the chat to let me know that you can hear me good. All right. Okay, cool. All right, great. All right. So who has not seen me teach before? Go ahead and put it in the chat if you've never seen me teach. Go ahead and put it in the chat. I'm just kind of curious to see. Okay, cool. All right, so we got newbies here. All right, so just so that you know, the most important thing we're going to do today is we're going to have fun, and I'm going to keep you interested. I also know that even though this webinar is 2 hours, we are not going to be able to stay on and keep you interested for 2 hours. I mean, I'm interesting, but I'm not that interesting. So after 50 minutes, we're taking a break. Okay. And so because of that, you will, I'm hoping, pay complete attention. All right. Do not be on your phone. Do not be in Facebook. Don't be on your email or texting or talking to anybody. Don't even go to the bathroom, because you're going to be able to do that in about 50 minutes. Okay. So now myself, I am well, these are all the people that are on the call today. They're going to be here helping you. Barbara's not here today yet, but Paige Hudson Garcia is. When you have questions, and you will, there are two ways to ask those questions. One way is to put them in the chat. If you put something in the chat, I will see it and I will answer you right when I'm in the middle of teaching. All right. If you have a long, involved question that takes you a minute to type and it takes me a minute to read, obviously don't put that in the chat. Put that in Q&A. Paige will take those questions. She will also be looking in the chat as well. All right. So Bill Sims is our head of marketing, and he kind of runs the show here. So he will be in the background as well. Myself, just look at the screen here for a second. You know the dude that does your 990 maybe, and if you get an audit, the nonprofit, you get an audit from an accounting firm. I own an accounting firm that does all this stuff. I specialize in nonprofits. I'm in Atlanta. We do it all over the country, though. We do 990s. We do audits. We have hundreds of nonprofits that we help through our technical support agreements, which is something I'll tell you about later on. And then I also own a company called QuickBooks Made Easy for nonprofits. Here's QuickBooks Made Easy for nonprofits right here. And you can find out about other seminars and webinars that we're doing. Also sign up for tech support. We have nonprofit services that we offer. I know there's a few of you that are thinking of switching from QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online. We offer a service that does that migrating for you. We also do consulting where we look over your books. We do 990s. We do all kinds of stuff. But anyway, so enough about me. Let's move on. If you do not know about Zoom, is the screen too small? Does anybody think your screen is too small? Because you're going to want to see, we're going to be together for 2 days here. And this is kind of small. These buttons are small. I want to make sure you can see them. Anybody think the screen's too small? Put it in the chat. I can zoom in like this if you need me to. But another thing that you can do is in Zoom, if you roll your mouse around, move your mouse around, Marianne, and then you'll look for this little view icon at the top right of your computer right there. And if you click it, you'll see something that says full screen. And if you pick it, then you'll be able to see the full screen. Now, when you do that, you'll no longer see the chat or the polls. So whenever you want to say anything or whenever you want to answer a poll, you'll need to reduce it back down so that you can see. All right, Marianne already has it up. All right, cool, enough of that. All right, so I'm gonna just move into the webinar series. Now, I need for you to understand something. This is a workshop where we're gonna get into some kind of advanced-y, but really cool stuff. And some of this stuff is gonna be QuickBooksy, but in the process, we're also gonna learn some accounting stuff. So it's really kind of neat. Now, in the first day here, we're looking at in-kind contributions. We're looking at tracking volunteers. We're looking at auto allocating of expenses. This is when you have indirect costs that need to be split between program admin and fundraising. We're going to talk about how to make that automatic, where QuickBooks knows what the percentages are. This is something you can do in QuickBooks Desktop. And then we're going to look at board reporting. So that's what we're going to cover today, okay? We're going to cover half of it. We'll take a break, and then we'll cover the other half of it. Tomorrow, we will do restricted grants, which will take the majority of the time. And then we'll look at some other board reports, okay? So that's how we're going to run. This is what we're covering today. And with that, I'm ready to get started on today. So I just want to make sure, is the printout available? Yes. So Sarah, you will get the PowerPoint deck. But much more valuable than that, you'll get the recording. So those of you that are listening to me going, is there going to be a recording? The answer is yes. Yes, there's going to be a recording. Yes, there's going to be a recording. And one more time, yes, there's going to be a recording. Okay. So, and I do that because there's always somebody that blows in and halfway through they go, is there going to be a recording? I'm like, I told you there's going to be a recording. Anyway, so in-kind contributions is what we're going to start with. This one's going to take about 25, 30 minutes, maybe a little longer. We'll have to see. All right. So first of all, what are in-kind contributions and why they matter? That's the first thing we'll talk about. Then what should be included on your financial statements versus what should be included on your tax returns? And those are actually different, okay? And then we're going to talk about how to value them. And then we're going to enter and track them in QuickBooks Desktop, not online, but desktop. And then we're going to look about what your responsibilities are in terms of reporting to the donor. So that's what we're going to do with in-kind contributions. And I am about to start, but I just want to make sure, does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns, any burning thing that they want to ask me before we get started here? Is everybody ready to go? I'm going to take a sip of water. Everybody's going to stop and listen to me. And by the way, we're breaking in like 40 minutes. So, hey, man, you're doing well, okay? I don't like to start until somebody tells me to get started. So in the chat, somebody let me know if you're ready to go. All right, Michelle, you've got it. So here we go. All right. First of all, now this is accounting information, so you're all going to learn here. First of all, what is an in-kind contribution? An in-kind contribution is a donation of anything at all to your organization other than money. All right. So it could be stuff like clothing, furniture, equipment. I have a client that is a battered women's shelter, and these women, they need clothing. They also need food. So they're in a safe house, and people come by to the office, not the safe house, and they drop off bags of clothing and bags of food. Those are in-kind contributions of stuff. Is there anybody else? Put in the chat, there's 170 of you on the call. What kinds of stuff do you get donated to you? And do not say auction items. That's the only thing that I don't want to discuss. Everything else, what stuff do you get donated? Art supplies, gift cards, food toiletries, advertising, clothes, furniture, food, meeting space. That's not really stuff, but it's a thing. Books, cool supplies, legal. I'm seeing people put services. Right now, we're just talking about stuff. We're just talking about stuff. Okay, drugs. Good for you, Chase. Carol says labor. Just talking about stuff right now. Pay attention to the slide. We're just talking about donations of stuff. All right, cool. So that is something that you should definitely put onto your books and into your financial statements. Those items also will appear on your tax return. All right. Stock. Yes. All right. Now, the person that said gift cards and the person that said stock, those are kind of like money. Not so much the stock, but certainly the gift cards. So I'm actually going to carve out a little special section at the end of this to talk about how to deal with gift cards. All right. But now time, that's not stuff, Nicolina. I just said stuff. Okay. Now, the second thing that you might get donated. Now, this is where we're going to get into things that aren't stuff, things that you don't touch, okay? Services, all right? That's the other thing that you may get donated. Now, it may be a specialized service or it may be a non-specialized service. Now, it's really important to make that distinction. So I need you to understand something here. A specialized service does get put in your financial statements. A non-specialized service does not get put in your financial statements. All things or stuff always get put in your financials, but services will only get put in your financials if they're specialized, okay? So let me explain. First of all, what is a specialized service? A specialized service is a service that requires some level of skill, all right? So it may be, and another thing, the person who's doing the service must be trained in that skill. If both of those things are true, then it's a specialized service. So if you have a repairman come and fix something and the person is a repairman, that's their trade, then obviously it's a specialized service, okay? If you have a painter come and paint your room, that's a specialized service being done by somebody trained in that. If you paint the room and you're not a painter, then it's not a specialized service and it shouldn't be booked, okay? Let's talk about specialized services. So I'm seeing now in the chat, Claudia says auditing. Well, if you have somebody audit you for free, that would be impressive. But yes, that's a specialized service. Legal services, yes. Legal services, web development. Renee, volunteering? Absolutely not. Anybody can volunteer. Graphic designer, yes. Electrical work, if it's done by an electrician, yes. Yes, Sue, what I'm describing to you is GAP. That's right. That's what I'm teaching. I'm teaching GAP. Again, the only reason why you would book a service is if it's a specialized service that one, requires skill, and two, the person is trained in that skill, okay? Advertising, promotions, most likely, yes. A designer, exactly. A handyman, if they do it for a living, yes, for sure, I would say so, yes. We'll talk about what to value. Now, this is interesting. Christine, We train crisis intervention volunteers. That would be a specialized service. Because the people that are doing the service, it's not like they work as crisis intervention therapists or something, but because their volunteers have to go through a training to do that specialized type of service, then absolutely you can book it. I've got a couple of other examples. I have a little radio show that I do on a radio station here in Atlanta, and all of the people that do the radio, all of the people on the air are all volunteers. Well, now I have to go through a 6-week training course to understand what dirty words I can't say on the air, to understand how to work the board, those kinds of things. So in order to be able to do that, I need to be trained. Therefore, we definitely book it. And it makes a huge difference on our financial statements. What about bookkeeping volunteers? If they are trained in it, then yes. If they do it for a living, then yes. Paige, does the point, this is from Tracy, the point about specialized services being included in your financial statements apply to nonprofits in the UK. I'm a London-based charity. So I'm doing generally accepted accounting principles, which is what's happening in the United States of America. I don't know what the rule is in UK because I don't think you use GAAP in the UK. So I apologize for that. I'm not sure. Mary, is this related to trade in some way? You mean when you're trading out services? I'm not sure what you're referring to, Mary. Oh, I see. Well, yeah. If they're providing something to you and you're providing something to them, then they basically donated an in-kind service to you. That's exactly right. GAAP is generally accepted accounting principles. And this is what, in America, when we have an audited financial statement done, it's based on generally accepted accounting principles, which is a whole bunch of gobbledygook that explains to you how your books are supposed to look. And one of those things is you only book in kind if it's a specialized service. All right, let's move on because I'm sure somebody here is bored and knows all this stuff. As a matter of fact, if you're chatting, put in the chat if you already know this or are ready to move on. I don't want to leave anybody out. So who's sitting here going, I know all this stuff, or I don't care? Okay, cool. All right. So now another thing that does get booked is rent. Okay. So is there anybody that is either in an office somewhere where they don't have to pay rent at all, or they are paying a discounted rent? Tori gets a steep discount. I'm amazed at how few people book this. It should be booked. And again, if you're starting to wonder how we value these things, we're going to get to that. Right now, I just want to explain to you, these are all of the things that should be on your financial statements. All right. All right. Now, I didn't put on this slide, and I should have, non-specialized services. So a non-specialized service is basically your volunteers. They come and they help you take tickets at a fundraising event, or they answer the phone at the office, or they come in for a work day and help clean up the office, that kind of a thing. Those do not get booked on your financial statements, okay? Okay. Delivering meals to seniors, K. Now that's interesting. Is there any training involved? You almost want there to be training so that you can book it, okay? So I would actually have them go through a training so that I can book it, all right? It's interesting. All right, so where do I report this stuff, okay? So there's stuff, there's specialized services and rent, and then there's non-specialized services. Those are basically all the categories of in-kind that you can get. When it comes to stuff, things that you can touch, they will always appear on your financial statements, and you should definitely book them. They also appear on the tax return that you may file. The return is called a 990. The only people that don't really worry about filing that too much are houses of worship, but pretty much everybody else does, okay? So Donna says a volunteer that is proficient in Excel. I don't know about that. That seems a little pushy. I don't know that that would count as a skill. Pretty much everybody, well, not everybody, but I hear what you're saying, but I'd be looking to see if the volunteer does this for work. And if they don't, then I probably wouldn't be able to value it. Okay. All right. Specialized services. Check this out. Specialized services and rent, they do appear on the financial. They do not appear on the 990. Okay. So let's just everybody stop for a second. See that things appear on financials and the 990, whereas specialized services and rent only appear on the financials and not the 990. Okay. Because of that, when we set this up in QuickBooks, which we'll do in a few minutes, we're going to need not one, two income accounts, one for the stuff and one for the services and rent, because these are treated differently. If I'm doing your 990, I need to know what this is so I can put it on the return. This, I need to make sure I don't put it in the return. However, it becomes a reconciling item on the 990. I need this and this separated out. Non-specialized services, they don't appear anywhere. They're not on the financial statements, and they are also not on the tax return. But you still want to track volunteer hours because you might be able to put them in the footnotes and stuff like that. And we'll talk about that. That's the next topic. But right now we're just handling in-kind contributions. So Vita says nonprofit organizations with a question. Tax exempted organizations with a question. I'm not sure what you're asking, but that's what this whole course is about. Teaching nonprofit organizations how to value the receipt of stuff, of in-kind contributions. That's the whole purpose of this webinar. All right. Now let's talk about how we value these things. All right. So if it's old stuff, if it's stuff and it's old, you want to look online for a good fair market value. All right. Now, one place that I would suggest looking at is Goodwill. Goodwill is obviously, people know in the United States what Goodwill is, but goodwill.org, they actually have a page where you can look and see, you can actually put in what it is that you're donating, and it helps give you let's see, find a store. Let me see if there's a help center here. It's probably in the help center. I probably should have done this before I even did this, but job opportunities, general, shopping and donating. You know what? Let's just do this. Goodwill values. Let's see if that works. Here's the here it is. Here's the value donation guide. And it tells you how much things are worth. Okay. And this is, you would use this chart, but there are plenty of things that you get that aren't on here. You know, it says a desktop computer is worth $150, but I don't see a laptop computer, you know, so I'm not exactly sure how much that would be. And these are just general guides. One thing that you do not want to do, listen very carefully, is for old stuff that you get that's used, do not rely on the donor to tell you what it's worth, okay? That is between them and the IRS. At the end of the year, when they do their individual tax return, they will say, I gave 200 bags of clothing, I'm going to value it at $50,000. That's between them and the IRS. You are on the hook to do your own valuing, okay, of what this stuff is. And that's what you will book. Has nothing to do with they're going to put what they're going to give to the donor. As a matter of, what they're going to put on their tax return. And as a matter of fact, that's why I'll say this again later, but I'm going to say it now. On the thank you that you give them for donated stuff, never put the value on there, because that's something that they can decide. The last thing you want is to put a value on a letter for in kind, give it to them. It's too much. And then they are with the IRS, and the IRS sees that your letterhead says this bag of clothing is worth $10,000. Then all of a sudden, you are basically part of trying to defraud the Internal Revenue Service. So never put dollar amounts on letters for in-kind contributions, okay? Do y'all get me? Somebody put it in the chat if that freaks you out, but you're not supposed to do that. That's why when you go to Goodwill or Salvation Army, they don't put the value on there. They give you the little blank receipt, you fill it out, all right? But in the back, they are figuring out what the value is, okay? Now, I don't want you to go crazy and go, okay, here's a bag of clothing, and let me take each and every item out and try and value it, because my battered women's shelter client, they get bags of clothing all week long. So what they did was they said, you know what, I think that a bag of clothing based on a couple that I tested is worth maybe $75 a bag. So that's what I'm going to do, okay? Now, if you're a food bank, is there anybody that's a food bank here? You get donated food. Well, there's not really anything here for food, but I believe if you go, I think the government has a per pound rate for donated food, if I'm not mistaken, that you can look at. I don't know if it's the Department of Education or I don't know what department it is, but there is like a food value. Okay, Feeding America's rate is $1.67 a pound, okay? All right. Donated food rate location would be greatly appreciated. Anybody know where you get that rate for donated food per pound? Let's see what it gets us. You know, it's amazing, Google. Yeah, look at that, $1.70 per pound is what it looks like. Look at this. This is the USDA. That's the one. That's where you go to get it. Go to the USDA website. Okay. So pretty cool. All right. Looks like it's $1.70 per pound. They change it each year. We get dog food, cat food. Should we value per pound or use the new cost? So Ruth, everything that I just said for you is old stuff. When you get people, I know, what did we do before Google? When you get people that give you new things, look at the receipt. Anybody that gives you something new that's unopened, look at the receipt. Now, I know you may not have the receipt for dog food, but I would go online and see what the retail value is. Used stuff, you look online. New stuff, you look on the receipt. Okay? Does that make sense? Used biotech equipment. Things get dicey there, right? You'll need to go online and look to see what new is and maybe figure out an appreciated rate, or maybe talk to a scientist or a doctor, or see what you can buy this stuff for, used, you know, that kind of thing. And that's your backup. All right. All right. Services, though. All right. For services, how do you value it at? It's what people usually charge. So if you have somebody who does this work for a living, then it's real easy. And you can ask them to give you an invoice, either discounted to zero or discounted to whatever it is that they are going to charge you. But if they don't do it for a living, like for me, I did all that. I do the radio show. I don't do it for a living. But you can Google again and see what someone who is running an online radio host, what they usually make in a local community-based radio station in Atlanta. I mean, you can get these numbers, okay? Let's see. If they give you a receipt, I assume we can put the value in the thank you. All right. Now, again, I don't like putting the value in the thank you of the receipt. You can if you want to, but I prefer not to, just to kind of make sure there's not an issue at all. All right. So we get some fabulous homemade blankets. We look at Epsi. Would that be acceptable? Absolutely. Absolutely. Does anyone exclude water from the poundage rate because of how heavy it is? That's interesting. I would create another value for donated water. Does anyone else have an issue with donors getting furious about not putting the value on the receipt? Yeah, that's too bad. Yeah, I'm sure that some people get upset, but you just need to explain to them. So do I need to record every discount a vendor provides me on an invoice? Theoretically, Lee, if they gave you a discount, you probably should book it as an in-kind contribution. That's right. You probably should. I'm going to show you a trick for making that easy. We'll do that in a little bit. All right. Actually, a little bit is now. So let's go ahead and we're going to go into QuickBooks. Now, again, we're using QuickBooks Desktop, which is this one. If anybody came in late, we're not teaching QuickBooks Online right now. QuickBooks Online, that looks like this. We're doing this on Wednesday and Thursday, but that's not what we're doing today. Today, we're doing the desktop. Okay. So first thing I need to ask you is, what accounts do we need? So what we need, I'm going to go into the chart of accounts list. And if you will notice, I have created not one, not two, but 3 accounts. I have a parent account called in-kind donations with 2 subs, one for goods and one for services. All right. I already told you why it is that we need that. Okay. As a matter of fact, I'm going to stop right in the middle of me teaching, and I'm going to do a poll for you and click launch. I just want to see if you've been paying attention to me. What in-kind items should be put into your financials? Volunteer helping answer phones, volunteer taking tickets at an event, volunteer cleaning the office, he's a pilot. Volunteer cleaning the office, he owns a cleaning service. Volunteer giving out food at a food drive. Okay, okay. Yeah, you guys know what's up. I'm going to take a little sip here real quick while you're answering that. And we're going to break in about 20 minutes. So we're really getting close to a break. It's very exciting. All right. We got just a few more people that need to answer. Yeah, Christopher, I know. Actually somebody got offended about that, but I've been in therapy for 20 years, so I don't have a problem with therapy at the least, but some people get very concerned about the title of this organization. But yeah, Kay just put her answer in the chat, but in reality, what we're trying to do is have you answer the polls. I'm going to go ahead and share the results. And obviously, most everybody got it. The only thing that gets booked is cleaning an office. And it's because the person who does it is trained in that skill. They own a cleaning service, okay? The rest of this, cleaning an office, the person's a pilot. Good luck getting an airplane pilot to clean your office as a volunteer. But anyway, and then giving out food at a food drive, that's not a specialized service, so that wouldn't count. But anyway, all right, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing. Wouldn't book any of that stuff. Okay, that's okay, Joe. We'll see you on Wednesday and Thursday. All right, so in order to create these accounts, if you're a newbie in QuickBooks, I guess I need to show you. You go to the bottom left-hand button, you click New, you make it an income account, you click Continue, you name the income account, you click Save and Close. If you have the account number feature turned on, you'll see a field right there to put an account number. You'll put an account number there, and then you click Save. Then you create 2 sub-accounts, one for goods, one for services. And to create a sub-account, you simply go to the bottom left-hand button, you click New, you create income, click Continue. We're going to put in-kind rent. I'll create one for rent and make that a sub-account of in-kind contributions. Okay, in-kind contributions. How is it done? I want to make it look just like the rest of them. There's a dash there. All right. There we go. Okay. I don't know if you know this, but you can, anytime in QuickBooks Desktop, you don't like the order of things, you see the little diamond to the left, you can click and drag to change the order of the things. I'll put the rent at the bottom. All right. All right. So that's how you create the income accounts. That's not hard. Now, the next thing you need to know is how to enter in-kind contributions. And another question is, how often can you enter in-kind contributions? Some people wait till the end of the year to do it, because if you have in-kind contributions, it kind of messes up your budget to actual if you haven't budgeted to include your in-kind contributions. But some people like to do it every month. Okay. Marilyn says, can an item be the same for an income account and an expense account? So Marilyn, are you talking about items in the item list? Are you talking about items in the item list, Marilyn? Okay, so that's a little advanced. So I'm going to ask you to hang for a minute and we'll get to you at the very end because I don't want to confuse people. Okay. All right. What I'm going to suggest you do to enter in-kind contributions is to use a journal entry. Now, I understand that people get freaked out about journal entries, and especially if you don't know very much about accounting. So I feel it necessary to show you a little chart that I've been showing people for years called Pregnant Alice. And what this chart does is it explains to you about when to make accounts go up or down. So let me click on this. Oops. All right. So this is Pregnant Alice. Use the chart below to help understand how to make journal entries. So this is Alice right there, ALICE. She is pregnant. She's pregnant. Okay. Let's move this, make this a little bit bigger. Let's see if I can move this. You can see this. All right, cool. So if the account is an asset or an expense, to make the account go up, you debit it. If it's anything else, to make it go up, you credit it. If it's an asset or an expense, to make it go up, you debit it. Anything else, including income, to make it go up, you debit it. Okay? So now that we understand that, I'm going to go to Company, Make Journal Entry, and this is where, and Tabitha, Bill, if you could send them the Pregnant Alice thing, make sure that it's one that doesn't have that logo on it, but go ahead and send it to them. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to record in kind the donation of a good. All right. So somebody was talking about pet food. So we'll just do that one. So let's say it was new pet food. So, and we decided that it was valued at $150. Okay. And in the memo, I'm going to put, I don't know, 8 boxes of dog food. Okay. Now, in the name field, this is where you would typically put the name of the person who gave you this donation. All right. So people that give you money should be on your customer list. So that's where you would, that's the name that you would put right there. Okay. We'll put Sherry Bono. All right. Now, if you don't know this, you need to go to other trainings from me. You should know this, that nonprofits, unless you're a house of worship, other nonprofits, everybody else, has to break their expenses up into 3 groupings: program, fundraising, and admin. Okay. And that's how it has to show on your reports and on your tax return. It has to show kind of split up, not only what the expense was for, but also whether it was program, admin, or fundraising. And that's what you use classes for. So we'll say this is for, oh, this is a therapy. I don't know why we're giving people dog food. There's something really wrong here, but that's okay. We're going to put it to the counseling center. Now, what do you suppose the other side of this should go to? Because basically what happened is somebody gave us dog food. So we took in dog food, but then we immediately used it to feed the dogs. All right. Yeah. Dog therapy. Thank you. So what if we had bought that dog food and paid and used it to feed the dogs? We would have put it to an expense account. I don't know, pet food costs or something like that. I don't know what we would have put it to. I'm just going to add one. But the point is, this is the big point. You point it to the same expense account as you would have you written a check. All right. Paid it online. So I see Sarah says programming expense. You wouldn't want to have an expense account called programming expense. That's just a general rule in accounting. You do want to have a class called programming or the pet program or whatever. But here you would put whatever the cost was for. It's the object. That's what you put here. I put pet food costs, okay? If you have multiple programs, then you pick which program it is over here, but nevertheless, you never put programming costs as an expense account, all right? You put what it is, okay? So this will be an expense account. All right. And this will go to the counseling center as well. And I could put the name of the person right here as well. Right there, okay? Why are you debiting expense? All right, so what's happened is, well, because we want to make the expense go up is what I should say, okay? What if it's an asset? If it's an asset like fixed assets, like a computer, then you would debit fixed assets on the balance sheet. That's right. Let's do another one for that, just so you can see it. So in kind, whoops. In kind goods, we'll say this was $2,000, and this is for a new computer, okay? And we'll say this other person gave it to us, and it goes for admin, but the other side of it goes to office equipment, which is a fixed asset, okay? So that's how that works. Does that make sense? All right, and this will go to admin, all right? So that's basically how you record it. Now let's do a service, okay? So let's say I'm hearing a background clicking noise. It might be because your headphones set. Just wanted to let you know. All right, I'll change and hold it like this. Hopefully nobody else, does this sound better to you guys? I need to get new headphones. Were y'all hearing clicking before and now you don't hear clicking now? Is this better? Okay, cool. Okay, so then I'll just hold it like this. It means I can only type with one hand though, but that's all right. All right, so now we're gonna do an in-kind service. Notice how we can do this all in one journal entry. Maybe we're doing it at the end of the year, maybe we're doing it at the end of the month, and we'll say the service, we'll say it is for counseling, because this is a counseling center. This is actually patterned after a real organization that I have been doing the books for years. And it's a counseling center, and they provide counseling for the indigent. And so since these people can't afford to pay for counseling, but they absolutely need it, the counselors are donating their time. Okay, so let's say that the counselor normally charges $100 an hour for a counseling session, which is really cheap, by the way. But instead, they're charging, our clients are charging us $20. So that means they're basically donating $80 an hour. So they would give me an invoice, 10 hours, $100 an hour, that's $1,000, but we're discounting it $800, so they're only giving me an invoice for $200. So what I could do is I could enter the 800, the discounted rate, as an in-kind contribution, $800 for, and this person is a donor now because they've given us, let's say it's Lois Lane. That'd be cool. And this was for the retreat. And then you would point it to counselor's expense. All right. So Cynthia, wrong, okay? Because Cynthia says, wouldn't you create an in-kind expense account? Now, I do want you to create an income and income account, but if you create an in-kind expense account, then you're going to have a whole nother set of expense accounts for the in-kind, and it's going to make your P&L bigger. And then when I do your audit, I'm going to have to go through the in-kind expense account and move every transaction to the actual expense that it related to, okay? Would the memo change to counseling services? Yes, of course, of course. And as a matter of fact, I would put like 8 hours, well, that's actually 10 hours, right? 10 hours at $80. All right. I'm going to highlight this, push Control C. That'll make a copy. Then I'm going to paste it over here, Control V. There we go. I'll put Lois Lane here again. really close to a break, but there's a couple of cool tricks I'm going to do for you before we end here. And this is for the routine as well. I'm going to save and close. Okay. Jamie, that's the thing I'm going to show you in a second. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull up a budget to actual report. I wonder if I saved it. Yeah, I did. Here it is. Because let's take a look and see how this appears on your budget to actual. And I'm going to show you something that Jamie is concerned about. Okay. Now here's the income right here. There's the goods. There's the services. There's no budget line item for it. The board of directors is not going to be upset. Okay, because it's not like they were expecting this, so they wouldn't be upset. But the problem with doing what I told you to do, which is pointing the expense to the same exact expense account as it was when if you had written a check, is that now it looks like you spent too much money on counselors. So this freaks people out, okay? Jamie, and this is what you're talking about. And this is also why that other person likes having an in-kind expense account. So what I'm going to say to you is if this is a problem, two solutions, well, three. One, if you don't get that many in-kind contributions and they're not that important to you, wait till the end of the year to book it so it doesn't screw up your budgets to actuals all year long. If you get a lot of in-kind contributions and it's a big part of what you do, then in that case, you do want your budget to include a budget for your in-kind contributions, okay? Now, if you are absolutely just hell-bent saying, I refuse to do what you're telling me, Greg, this is too upsetting for me, then what I have seen people do is create a sub-account, okay? So I'll make this counselor, I'll put in kind, create expense accounts that are sub accounts under the parent, in kind, counselors, donated services. Darn it. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and set this account up. Expense, continue. I'll make it a sub account of counselors. Here we go. Save and close. So then when you run the P&L, you'll see what the difference is. Oh, you know what? I never moved the $800, did I? Let me move the $800 to it. There we go. I thought I did. Oh, it's down. Yeah, there it is. It's down here. That's right. So then you can see it either separated out or together. Can you do this on an actual invoice? So you can. It's pretty complicated. Okay. So let me see what else because there's a few things I need to teach here before I get to that. Can we input in-kind transactions as we go with an end of year date? Lee, I love that. That's a wonderful suggestion. I like that answer. Let me show you another cool thing that some people like to do. I'm going to talk about that, this $200 or this $800 here. Now, unlike these other two, the $800 was actually, there was a bill for $200. So I'm going to show you an alternative method. What some people do is when they either enter a bill or if they're writing a check ahead of it, let me go ahead to the write check window. When you go to pay the person, let's see, let me just pick somebody. And we'll say that we're paying her $200. You can enter it at the same time you're entering the amount you pay them, you can enter the in-kind portion, okay? So I can put counselors, $200 there. And then since we have two different accounts for it now, in kind there, $800. And then I can enter the revenue in kind services as a minus $800 like this. So in the end, I'm basically doing two things at once. I'm putting in the actual amount paid, but I'm also doing the functional equivalent of a journal entry, making the in-kind expense account go up and the in-kind income account go up by entering it as a negative. I'll go ahead and click save. So see, that would be another way of getting that information in there, okay? Now, what version of QuickBooks that am I using? Not a relevant question. This works for all versions of QuickBooks, but I'm using version 2022 Premier Nonprofit, okay? Now, I want to cover the gift card. What does the donation look like on the customer account? So, Matthew, it's not on the customer account, all right, because we entered it as a journal entry, and journal entries don't appear here. Now, if you want it to appear here, then you will need to use the sales forms. Now, I'm going to wait to teach that until after the break because I don't want to confuse people, okay? Because most people don't use the sales forms, okay? But anyway, there was somebody else that had a question about it, so I want to bring that up. Before I do that, there's one other thing I need to teach you, and that's gift cards. Who has gift cards here? I know somebody gets gift cards donated. Who gets gift cards donated? Put it in there. Okay, so gift cards, they are not in-kind contributions. I want you to think of them as their own bank account, okay? So what you're going to do, watch very carefully. When somebody gives you a gift card, because typically they give you the gift card, well, actually, there's two choices. Some people give you gift cards and you turn right around and you give them out to your clients. If you give them out immediately and you're not looking to track them, then you can simply do a journal entry like we normally do, okay? Company, make general journal entry. You would credit. I don't even know that I would in-kind goods. I would make it contributions because it's basically money, $1,000. And then I would point it to whatever expense account relates to, maybe called client services, client support gifts or something like that. Put it to an account like that. So that's how you would handle it if, and only if, you give them out right away and you don't want to track them. Some people want to track them though. And if that's the case, then what I want you to do is set up a bank account, bottom left-hand button, new, called gift cards. And this works especially well. It works especially well if you're using these gift cards to buy things for yourself. Because then what happens is you would enter the donation, you enter it however you normally enter it. I'll just go to the make deposit window. But instead of depositing it to a bank account, I'll deposit it to gift cards. And then I can put who it's from. This was an individual contribution. And we'll say it's $1,000. And it's under payment method. You might want to even add one for gift card. Maybe I'll add one for gift card. But it's like cash. You don't want to lose it. All right. So then there'll be $1,000 in gift cards. So then as you use the card, then you simply write checks out of the gift card account. And you can put what you used it for, okay? I used it at, at Highlands Ace Hardware. And I spent $358 off the gift card. I put it to, whatever the expense account would be. I'll put it to miscellaneous, my least favorite expense account, miscellaneous. And when I save and close, and by the way, this little one, I can actually take that one and I can write it on the receipt that I got when I used the gift card. Okay. I'll click save and close. And now this has what's left. Okay. So when you book the income, Jamie, you don't know whether you're going to use it for fundraising, admin, or programming. So just like any unrestricted grants, when you book income on a gift card and you're trying to figure out what class to point it to, put it to the fundraising class, okay? What if it's a grocery store donating gift cards? So Shay, are these gift cards that you're going to give out to other people to use at the grocery store? Because if you're not keeping them and instead you're just giving them out, then I would just do it as a journal entry, crediting the contributions and debiting client service costs or something like that. No, we keep them and use to buy things. Then, Shay, you would put it just like I did right here as an asset, okay? And when you book them in as income, just put it to fundraising. Or, I mean, actually, you might be able to put it to the program because you're probably not using groceries for anything other than program costs. So, all right, I have a poll I want to ask you. What if stores give gift cards to be raffled at a fundraising event? So that is in and out. It's never really yours. I wouldn't book those at all, just like I don't book auction items. It only becomes a footnote on the tax return. I'm going to go ahead and ask. Now, all of these, because we're about ready to take a break, all of these songs, we'll hear one of them, are related to places. So New York State of Mind, Hotel California, The Devil Went Down to Georgia, Private Idaho, and Carolina on my mind. Isn't that clever of me? But anyway, I want you to pick which song you want to hear. And we will listen to the song. You will go to the bathroom and chill out. And when you come back, I'll show you real quickly how to do a donation using the sales forms like an invoice or a sales receipt. Hopefully, only a few of you will pay attention, the ones that understand it, because if you don't understand it, it's going to make you feel more confused than ever. So don't use the sales forms, then don't worry about it. And we'll be right back. And this song always wins. So here we go. All right. And we are back. We got 20 seconds left, but Paige, did you want to come on the line? Is there anything in particular that you feel like we should talk about? These people are kind of smart. They know what's going on from what I can tell. What do you think?
I agree. We got a really smart group today.
Yeah.
On track so far. They're ready to get in. Good something.
All right. Okay, cool. I am going to ask one little poll question. Oh, wow. I'm still sharing the song. All right. Let me, let's see. This is kind of an interesting question. I'm just kind of curious. How comfortable are you with QuickBooks? One is I'm a complete newbie. Two is I know QuickBooks, but I'm new to using it for a nonprofit. Three is I know QuickBooks and nonprofits pretty well, but, just got some questions, trying to get better. And then finally, I'm an expert, and I'm here to judge and heckle Greg. So hopefully there's not too many people doing that. There's one. It's probably you, Paige. All right, so we've got 173 people, so not one person is left, which is great. How was your bathroom experience? Did everyone go to the bathroom? How was it? Let's see. Anybody else? Okay. I'm just kind of looking to see if there's any questions here. We have in-kind set up as other income and expense. It shows at the bottom of the line, acceptable. I'm not going to kill you for that, Terry. I'm okay with that. Everything came out from okay. No line for the bathroom. That's good. That's good. All right. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll here. There's still some people that aren't back yet. There's probably like 60 people that are still gone, that are like, you know what, screw it, I'm not going to stay. But anyway, they'll be back at some point. But anyway, as you can tell, we've got 40 people that are brand new. All right, so that's a lot of people. So I do want to point out something that is coming up, and we are going to give you a discount for it. I just want to spend a second here. Let me go back over into Quickity Books. All right. So if you go to QuickBooks Made Easy for Nonprofits, that's all you do, just QuickBooksMadeEasy.com. You're going to see under courses and training upcoming webinars. So those of you that are newer, I would suggest very strongly that you sign up for, it's 2 hours a day for 3 days. It's happening on May 24th, 25th, and 26th. It's QuickBooks Made Easy for Nonprofits. It's our spring fundamental webinar series for the desktop. It's just for nonprofits. And you can look at all the topics covered in day 1, day 2, day 3. We even get continuing professional education credits. And it's everything. Pledges, restricted grants, special fundraising events, thank you letters, in-kind contributions, although allocating, different ways of entering income, membership dues, donations, grants, entering and paying bills, spreading them to costs, essential reports for the board, how to scan documents that attach. Day 1 is appropriate setup. I see a lot of you need that. Annual budgeting, cutting and pasting from Excel. So there's all kinds of stuff that we learn. It's kind of a soup to nuts training. And so we are going to give you a big discount for that. It's normally, what is it? It's $2.99. We're going to give you, I think, $40 or $50 off. I'll give you the coupon at the end, okay? If you like to learn on demand, if you click on demand, we have our whole bundle here. It's 16 hours of learning, teaches you every single thing you know about QuickBooks. It's more than what we do in the 3-day miniseries, and it's certainly more than here, and it becomes the Bible of the organization. We're going to give you $100 off of this. It's normally $3.99. We're going to give it to you for $2, and we're going to give you an extra 3 months of tech support for only $100. So that's a really good deal. So take a look at that. If you work at a church, you should wait for the September webinar. That's exactly right. Wait for the September webinar. Although we do have a training course just for houses of worship down here. Okay. It comes, Pam, no, a book is, we used to do books. Everything is in the cloud now. So, but you have access to it forever. All right. So let's go back into QuickBooks. I'll give you the discounts on these things at the end. But I do want to talk just for a second. How many of you, yeah, we'll send the codes, we will. How many of you are used to using the sales forms in QuickBooks? And particularly, I'm referring to this sales receipt. Put in the chat, who uses this? Okay. All right. So people that use this are going to be interested, because what happens is when you put something either in a sales form that's a sales receipt or the other one that's an invoice, either one, those things show in the customer's screen. If you go to the customer center and you click on a customer, Sherry Bona, you will see, oh, wow, look at this. You know what? Remember I told you that the general ledger won't appear? They've changed it. It does appear in the newer versions. I know it doesn't in the older versions, but it appears backwards. It appears as a negative, which is kind of annoying. But what some people like to do is they want to use the sales forms to enter donations so that it's in the same format. You see how this is entered as a negative? So that's kind of weird. So it'd be nice if it was entered as a positive. So let me show you how to use the sales forms. Now, I actually have a whole, that's what a chunk of day 2 in my webinar series is about using these sales receipts and these invoices. They require something called items. So if you don't use these sales forms, then pay no attention to what I'm about to teach. But for the few of you that do use the sales forms, you can use this to record in-kind contributions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my items list and I'm going to create 2 items. One, it's going to be a service and I'm going to call it in-kind goods. And I'm going to put in, this is donation of goods. And I'm going to point it to my in-kind contribution goods account. I'm going to click next. I'm going to create one more, and I'm going to call it in-kind counseling used. Okay. I'm going to point this account. I'm going to point this item to my counseling expense. You can point an item to an expense account. This is in-kind counseling. Oh my gosh, hold on. In-kind counseling used. Okay. Click OK. So now what I'm going to do is basically what's called a $0 sales receipt. Okay. So I'm going to click on, okay. I'm going to click on the item, in-kind goods. I'm going to enter it as a positive $800. And then actually let's do it for, well, I've already messed that up because I called it in-kind goods. So anyway, we'll make it $20,000. And then in-kind counseling used, I'm going to enter this as a negative 20,000. This is the same thing as doing the journal entry. It's just using a sales receipt. Okay. Okay. So, the net is 0. So there's not really anything going to a bank account. So I can just leave it in undeposited funds or put it in the checking account. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And I can control Y, and it tells me what happened. And you can see how both accounts were affected. The goods went up. The services used went down. Let me show you. I'll run a P&L again. Is my P&L still up here? No. Okay. You see, there's the 22,000 right down there in income. And then here's the 20,000 down here. Okay. So that's another way to enter. The reason why that's in there is because there were other transactions. Okay. Why would you choose one system under the other? So yes, it shows on the customer record that way. That's right. If you go down here, did I do Sherry Bona or did I pick somebody else? I can't remember now. But it'll show on the customer record. All right. Now, the reason why in general that somebody decides they're going to use this sales receipt is so they can see it on the customer record. But if you don't use sales receipts for your regular donations, there's no need to use sales receipts for your in-kind stuff. Okay. All right. So that's okay too, Renee. All right. So I'm going to move on. There's umpteen million ways of doing this, but what I want to do instead is I want to change to a different topic. Let me go back to my slide. All right. This is just the end of in-kind. We spent more time on here than I wanted to, but that's okay. We've got 2 days. So whatever we don't cover today, we'll finish tomorrow. So, all right. Why do I need to give the donor, or when do I need to give the donor a thank you? Okay. So listen very carefully because this might surprise you. The donor actually only needs something from the charity if what they gave you is a good and the value is more than $250, okay? If they gave you a service, you don't have to thank them at all because services given cannot be deducted on a person's individual tax return. I'll say that again. Services given are not deductible as charity on the person's tax return. If I donated the audit to you and I did the audit for free, I could not write off as a charitable contribution the value of what I gave to you. They will not let me do that. All I can donate is my actual costs, the stuff, okay? So, and they only need an acknowledgement from you if the value is over $250. So it has to be a good and the value's over 250,000. Now, I still think you should give everybody a thank you. I'm just telling you what your legal requirement is, okay? Now, even in this case, now this is going to surprise you. Even in this case, when they need an acknowledgement, technically, you aren't required to give it to them. You see, the reason why they need the acknowledgement is so they can write it off on their taxes and have proof. But if you want to be a jerk and not give it to them, the onus is on them to show up to the IRS agent with the document. And if they don't have it, that's on them. It's not your fault if you refuse to give it to them. Now, obviously, you're going to give it to them. But the reason why I say this to you is if you are out there going, I've not been giving thank yous for my in-kind. In fact, I haven't given my thank yous for anything. We're not very good at that. Are we breaking the law? No, you're not. The onus is on them. You just want to be good to your donors so they'll still give you money. Okay? All right. No, 250, I believe. Yeah, I think it's 250, Pam, for everybody. But it's good to do it anyway. You're not required to give it to them, and you should describe the gift, but do not value it in the acknowledgement. These are the 5 things the donor acknowledgement should contain. You'll get this slide. The charity name and your EIN, your tax exempt status, I'm a 501c3, the date of the contribution, the description of what was contributed, not the dollar amount, but a statement saying no goods or services were exchanged for this contribution. Okay, here's an example of it right there. And I'm done. All right, so I'm going to move into tracking volunteers. This isn't going to take as long. It's probably going to take about 20, 25 minutes. Paige, can you check to see if cash is, if you have to have 75, if it's more than, like when does a donor have to have a thank you for a donation of cash? What's the dollar amount? Can you look that up for me? What if I give a gift of equal value with a cash donation? Then it's not a donation at all. If they give you something and what they give you and you give them back something of equal value, they just bought something from you. That's not a donation. And then they shouldn't be able to deduct any of it. No, it's not 500. No, the CARES Act, you're thinking of something completely different. What the CARES Act did was it allowed donors that don't itemize on their taxes to donate up to $300 and still get it written off their taxes, even though they don't itemize their deductions. Actually, that happened in 2018. We'll get the slides probably tomorrow. All right. So, all right. I want to move on to tracking volunteers. Is everybody cool to move on? And then we'll try and answer some more questions at the end. And if you think of some more, we can get them tomorrow morning. But okay, cool. All right, so tracking volunteers. So what we're going to cover is where to store them in QuickBooks Desktop, how to track information from them. We're going to look at a couple of reports with a listing of volunteers. We're going to show how to enter time for them. We're going to look at time reporting, and they'll end with tracking matching grant hours, which are kind of cool. Okay. So tracking volunteers, I'm just going to go right into QuickBooks here. So even though, and these are the people that give you unspecialized services, you still want to track them. As a matter of fact, if you look at a 990, I'm going to show you a 990 PDF. It's important that you understand why we do things, okay? Here's a 990 for a nonprofit, okay? This is the tax return that you have to fill out. On the very first line or very first page, it says number of volunteers, estimate if necessary. Now, it doesn't have a number of hours or what they did, but it does have the number of volunteers you have. This 990 will be on a website called GuideStar, where all 990s are. You can look up your own 990 right on that website. And so funders will look at this when they're looking over your grant applications. Even though you haven't even given them your 990, they can still look it up. Okay, a lot of them ask for it anyway. Another place where volunteer hours, you'll see people put it on their tax return, is in this little section here. This is where you basically describe the programs. And a lot of times people put in the paragraphs here, how many volunteers, how many hours, that kind of thing. So it's not really in the face of the financial statements, but it's still there. What you are about to show, will that work for specialized volunteer tracking also? Yes, yes, yes. You can still track the hours. That's right, Christine. That's right. Sorry about that. All right. So again, we're not necessarily booking a dollar amount, but we're still tracking the hours. So the first thing is we need a place to put the name of the volunteer. Now, there are count them, 4 places in QuickBooks Desktop where you can put names, okay? One of those places is the customer list. This is typically where you put your donors, your members, your students, okay? I know a lot of times your donors are your volunteers too. We'll talk about that. But nevertheless, this is where your donors would go. Vendors, those are the people that pay your money to. They will go in the vendor list. Employees, they get W-2s at the end of the year. They go on the employee list. There's a 4th list where you put names in QuickBooks Desktop. It's a list that's ignored. No one even knows about it. It's called the other names list. I want everyone to look at your other names list when you're done with this webinar. And you will see names on here. This is where you put people when you don't know what you're going to do with them yet. Okay, we don't have any here. Let's go to a different data file where I do have some information. Might be helpful. Here's tracking volunteers. Let me go to a different data file here. The Abyss. Yeah, it's interesting. This particular list, the other names list, the reason why that exists is because, you know, Quicken used to be owned by Intuit. They sold it, but Quicken used to be owned by Intuit, and you could move Quicken into QuickBooks very easily. Obviously, they want to make it easy. But there was only one list of names in Quicken, not 3 like QuickBooks. So since they didn't know which list to put the names in, they created an other names list so that when people transferred from Quicken to QuickBooks, everything would go in the other names list. And then when you're in the other names list, I'm going to go to the other names list, you can actually change other name types. You can go through your other names list and you can say, okay, that's a customer, that's a vendor, that's a customer, that's an employee. You can get them out of the other names list, okay? So that's where I like to put my names. Now, understand, you can't have the same name on more than one list, all right? As an example here, I'll try and add somebody that's already in my, my customer list. Here, this Sherry Bona, okay? I'm gonna try and add the same name in the volunteer list, which is where the other names are going to be. I'm suggesting you put your volunteers there. And it's going to say that name's already used in the customer list. You can't use the same name on more than one list. If you've been using QuickBooks for a while, you know that this is the case. What's the solution? What's the solution? Anybody know? What's the solution? Because you got to get the name in here, but I can't use the same name. Put a period, add a number. Yes, yes. Some people do. They put a VOL. Okay. This isn't what's going to print. Okay. What's going to print on letters and stuff, you can do letters, is down here. So let's see. This is Sherry and Bona. Okay. And then you can put her address, phone number. Now, one of the things that I like, let me get out of here, is I like to put in the account number field, I like to put what kind of work they do. Now, I should say, these are all the fields that you have. So it's not as if it's a huge database. There's certain fields that you have, and that's it. So I like to use this account number field, and I like to put what they do for a living, because it's interesting to me, because I might need to use them for things, okay? So I need to know what they do for a living. So you put the name. Here in the contacts, I like to put the name of either the employee or the board member that knows them. Most volunteers are connected with somebody, and it's nice to know who that person is, all right? So now I will give you an alternative place to put your names. One of the things that's not cool about the other names list is it's a fixed list. You can't add additional fields to it. If you decide to, you can put your volunteers in the vendor list. Now, what I do is I put them all the way down at the bottom by putting a VOL in front of their name. The only reason why I would put my name here is if I want to add additional fields. There's a place to put additional customized fields for volunteers, for vendors that you don't have for the other names list, okay? So what if you pay a stipend to your volunteer? Wouldn't vendors, if you're paying the person, that's not a volunteer, okay? That's not a volunteer. All right. So anyway, but I'm going to teach. Now, what I'm about to teach for the rest of this, you can do regardless of whether you put them in the vendors list or the other names list. I like the other names list, which is right here. It keeps them nice and separate, okay? Now, first thing, let's get a report. I'm going to click on reports. I'm going to click on lists. And I'm going to click on other names contact list. Now, what you're going to do is, what I want to do first of all, before I get into entering time, is I just want to get a list of my volunteers with information. So what I'm going to suggest that you do is to create a memorized report, okay? I'm going to go to lists. I'm going to go to other names contact list. I'm going to click it, and then I can fix this thing, get rid of columns I don't want, add columns I do. No one has faxes anymore. Customize. I'm going to get rid of the fax column by unclicking this, and I'm going to click OK. Now that's gone. Another thing people didn't know that you can do, which you can do, it's really kind of cool, is you can change the columns around, the order of them. So I've got this other name here, and then I've got their address here, then I got their phone number. So what if I don't really want their address? I'm going to go over here to customize, and I'm going to uncheck address. Okay. But let's say that I want the name of the contact before the other name. Now, when I move my mouse to the top of a column, you see how it turns into a hand? This is going to blow you away. When I click, the fingers grab the top of the column. I can drag and drop the column and move the order. Isn't that kind of cool? I think that's really cool. Did anybody know that? I think it's really neat. But all right, so I need to change the name of this. So I'm going to call this, I'm going to click on customize, and I'm going to call this, let me go to header filter, and I'm going to call this vendor contact list. Well, it's not vendor, I'm sorry, it's volunteer. Okay, volunteer contact list. Now, I'm going to go to customize, and I'm going to add the account field, the account number field. It says it's an account number, but I just put what they did in there, you see? So then what's neat about this, first of all, you can very easily see who we didn't fill in. You can double click on Shirley Jones and say, okay, Shirley is a plumber. And we'll say, so is Tim Lyle. Plumber. And what I like about this is now, let me go ahead and save this, memorize, click OK. So now whenever you want to get to that report, you go to reports, and memorize reports, and there it is. And you can pop it up whenever you need. Let's say the toilet busts and you need a plumber. I can use filtering because this only has 6 names on it. You may have 150 or 200. I'm going to click on customize. I'm going to filter, and I'm going to filter the report to only include the field of account number. Where's account number? It's the first field that has the word plumber in it. And I don't even need to put the whole word. I'll just put plum. And I'll click OK. And now it gives me people that are plumbers. All right. So I think that's pretty cool. Now, obviously, the biggest part of tracking volunteers, well, I will say that there is a feature in here where you can actually send letters to them. I'm going to go to company, prepare letters and envelopes, letters to other names. So I would say take a look at that. Now, you'll need to have Excel on your computer, but you can actually create or edit a letter template and create your own letters. They're in Word. It's really very cool. But anyway, that's not what I wanted to teach because not a lot of people need that. But what a lot of people do need is time, okay? Now, you can enter hours for your volunteers, okay? Not only can you enter the number of hours worked for a particular time period, but you can also put what they did for work. And if you have matching grants and the hours account towards a grant, you can also track that as well, okay? So in order to do that, there's a couple of things we need to do, okay? First thing we need to do is I'm gonna go to my preferences, which are under the edit menu and preferences. And I'm going to, these are your features that you turn on or off in QuickBooks. Let me go to it again. I'll go to edit and I'll go to preferences. And there are categories here. These are the accounting preferences. This is the checking preferences. This is the desktop view preferences. This is the general preferences. There's a ton of them. If you go down to the bottom, there's one that says time and expenses. You click it. You go over to the company tab. Now, only the head administrator of QuickBooks can get into these company size. So somebody else may be needing to do it. But do you track time? You put yes. You put the first day of your work week. You click OK. You're done. Now you can start entering time. Okay. Now, to enter time, you go under, right on this home page, you'll see something that says enter time. Click it. You can either use a weekly timesheet or you can enter it by the activity, okay? So I'm gonna use a weekly timesheet, but before I do that, I need to get you to set up one thing. Well, actually, you know what? Let's go to the weekly timesheet first, okay? People don't know that you can put hours for your other names. You can. So I'm going to look at Mike Fogio and I'm going to enter time for him. And let's say I'm just going to do this at the end of the month. He gives me his hours. I'm just going to do this at the end of the month. All right. So what I'm going to do is, well, you might start using it, Laura. It's really very cool. So I'm going to go to the last day of the month and I'm going to enter his time. Now, if you're anal, then you can enter time by the day, but I'm just going to wait till the last day of the month. I'm going to enter it on the last day, and I'm going to say he worked 56 hours. Now, it says here that's more than 24 hours. How are you going to volunteer more than 24 hours in a day? That's just a warning. Just click OK. You can blow it off, okay? So you can put the whole month on the same line. Now, what I do like is the items tab. Now, I mentioned this to you right after the break. People that use the sales receipt form, they're familiar with this list in QuickBooks called the items list. And items point to income accounts. They also point to expense accounts. What I've done is I've created items because, see, you can put these items on a timesheet. Now, I'm just going to give you some context here. Typically, when you are a construction contractor and you're entering time in QuickBooks for people working, and I know you're not a construction contractor, but I just want you to understand why this service item is here. Construction contractors want to know what type of work the person did on the timesheet. Did they do drywalling? Did they do plumbing? Did they do excavating? Did they do demo? And they have different billing rates for that, and they estimate differently for that. So they need the time to be broken out in terms of what you did. So what I've done, we don't need that. We're not construction contractors, but what I've done is I've created a couple of items. Here's one called Go Green Guidance Center Tours, Go Green Guidance Tours. And I've created it. So, and what I did was I created a parent item called Volunteer Services. And then I have two subs underneath it. Now, notice when I created this, it thinks I'm going to use this on transactions, but I'm not. But it thinks I am, and technically I could. So what I did was I created an income account called Do Not Use, so that if somebody accidentally uses this on an invoice or a sales receipt, and if you don't use invoices or sales receipt, don't worry about this. But if you do, and somebody accidentally uses it on an invoice or a sales receipt, it'll automatically appear in the Do Not Use income account so that you'll know that somebody screwed up. The only reason I'm using this is so that I can use it on timesheets. Okay. All right. So I'm going to click OK. So now I'm going to create one. Bottom left-hand button, new, service. Now somebody tell me the name of, somebody tell me some type of volunteering that they need to track, like a particular type of volunteering or something they need to track when that relates to volunteers. Put it in the chat. Okay. Festival help. We'll do festival help. All right. And I'm going to point it to my Do Not Use account because I don't want anybody to actually use this. Now I am going to make it a sub item of volunteer services and click OK. Now, when I go here, I can say this person did festival help. And if all they did was festival help, I can just put it all on the same line at the end of the month, okay? But let's say this person did 20 hours of festival help, and then they spent the rest of the time, the rest of the month, I should say, doing tours, Go Green Guidance Tours, and they spent 30 hours on it. Okay. All right. Now I got one more thing, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait on the matching grant piece. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save and Close. And then we're going to take a look at a report. So to get reports for time, you go to Reports, you go to Jobs, Time, and Mileage, and you go to a time. I like to start with a time by name report. This gives me each volunteer and how many hours they spent. I'm going to click it. I'm going to change the date range so that it has some more stuff in it. I'm just going to make it all dates. And then the total number of hours spent during whatever time period this is. But for this, it's 134 hours. Okay. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different volunteers. As a matter of fact, if you want to know how many volunteers you have, rather than counting in the other names list, if you push Control and the 1 button, it will tell you, this window pops up called a product information window, and it tells you how many other names we have, which is 6. Isn't that kind of cool? So you can see we have 6 volunteers, and that's what you put on that 990. Okay. Now, if you notice this, we have the person's name. Underneath it, we have the job. that was assigned to them. Now, a job is basically a sub-customer in QuickBooks, okay? And the reason why they're assuming that you want the names broken up by the job assigned is because construction contractors, when they do their time, let me go ahead and click on Mike's time. You see this customer job? Typically, you would put the job that they worked on, and then that would appear down there. That's if you want, you can use it to point it to grants, because grants get put in the customer list. So I'm going to click on this, not for this festival, but for this other one. I'm going to put it to the Help for You Grants Foundation. I'll save and close. And this way, you can see, you see these 30 hours gets pointed to the Help for You Grants Foundation for matching purposes. But anyway, we're not interested in this. Most nonprofits, they want to know, they don't want the sub here to be the job. Display time grouped by time by name by job. I'm going to make it time by name by item. And now I can see exactly where they spent their time. All right. Isn't that kind of cool? Now I can keep screwing around with this report. Let's see. Can I do time by item only? Well, let's go to a different report. Reports, jobs, time and mileage. Here's a time by item right here. Look at this. And I'll click the customize. I don't have any jobs, so I'll just put time by item only. And now I can see how many hours was spent in each area. Isn't that kind of cool? Okay. When using Control 1, time period can be entered. No, Control 1 is what I use to see how many other names I have right down there. All right. So the main benefit is you'll be able to get time reports. And then, of course, I would memorize these as well. Okay, by clicking the little memorize button right there. Okay. Now, does anybody have any questions about this timesheet feature? I know one thing people always wonder is about having the volunteers enter their own time. So you could conceivably set them up as users so they could enter their own time, but give them access to nothing but timesheets, but probably don't even want to do that. It's probably something where you'll be entering it at the end of the month or something. Is there anybody that has any questions about time before we move on and finish up? Let me go ahead and take a sip here. How's everybody feeling? Is everybody good? All right, so we've got like 10 minutes left. Okay, cool. Do you have to have QuickBooks Payroll? No, you don't have to have QuickBooks Payroll at all, okay? Values for volunteer time. So what I did, that's interesting. What I did, especially if it counts towards a match, when I created the item for Go Green Guidance Tour, I said that it's worth $23 an hour. But unfortunately, I've not been able to figure out how to get that on this report. But what I can do is if I act like I'm going to invoice the grantor, it does tell me what the value is here, but I can't really get that value on a report, okay? How to attach the signed document from volunteers. All right, yeah, I missed that. So when you go to the other names list, let me go to the other names list, and other names list. You see this little thing that says attach right here, right there? This is where you could attach their original agreement that they signed when they decided to become a volunteer. I'll give you another place to attach the timesheet in a minute. But I'm going to go to Shirley Jones. I'm going to double click. You've all been able to do this for years. You probably didn't know it. You can do this in your customer and your vendor list too. You click on the attached column, brings this up. You click on computer. You browse to where all of your, here's your volunteer agreements. Here's a Jennifer Duffus. Oh, that's not Jennifer Duffus. We'll act like it is. And I'll click open and click done. And now the document is right there. I'll double click on it to open it up. And here's the volunteer agreement for her right here that she signed. Okay. Now, if you want to attach the timesheet that was handwritten or sent to you via an email, let's see if you can attach that to timesheets. I don't know if you can or not. I do not see a place to attach a timesheet here, which is really unfortunate because you can usually attach timesheets. So it looks like you're going to have to add it in their in the other names list. You're probably going to have to keep attaching it right here, and because you can attach other documents. It's not just one. You can keep attaching other documents. Okay. Anybody else got a question? I got a couple more things I want to teach you, and then we'll be done. All right. So let's go back here. Now, the next thing that I'm going to teach you is board reporting and the appropriate structure of the lists. Now, this is something that's a pretty basic thing, but if you don't know it, you need to. So, and you'll need this for tomorrow. So I'm glad I'm teaching this now. When you are using QuickBooks and you are a nonprofit that's not a house of worship, okay, there are three things that you need to worry about when you're entering an expense. Three things. One of them is the natural category or the object of what the expense is. This would be what it is, what the object is, what the thing was that you spent on. Was it salaries? Was it travel? Was it rent? Was it equipment rental? Was it postage? Was it printing? Was it dues and subscriptions? Was it travel? Was it utilities? These are the normal way of thinking about expenses. That's what your chart of accounts is supposed to look like, your expense accounts. And when you enter a transaction, that's what you're supposed to put here, the natural category of the expense. All of our accounts should basically be the same, all right? We should all pretty much have the same expense accounts. They're generic, okay? Now, if you are used to working for a for-profit entity, that's typically all you need. In a nonprofit, you also have to decide what the function of the expense is. Did the expense go to support a particular program? Or did the expense go for overhead or admin costs, like the cost to come into this webinar? Or did you spend money in an effort to raise more money? Maybe like the cost of sending out a mailer or putting together a marketing piece or perhaps a development director, okay? So that you're supposed to use the class feature for. Now, I hear that some of you are using classes to track your grants. That is something I would like for you to change with your next new grant, because I need the classes for program, admin, and fundraising. And the reason why is so I can very easily do a profit and loss by class and see where my money is. Let me just make it all dates. So you can see how you're doing with a program's admin and fundraising. Let me switch to a different data file that's actually a little bit better organized. Change to a different data file. But if you are a nonprofit that's not a house of worship, you probably have to do a 990. And when you do a 990, your expenses have to be broken out. Let me show you what the expenses have to look like on a 990. Let's see. Here are the expenses. Let me zoom in to make this a little bit bigger. You see how the rows are going to be your natural categories. Travel, they call rent, occupancy. Here's advertising, office. But up top here, they're in these columns: program, management, fundraising. So you need classes for that. Now, you don't want to have just one class for program unless you only have one program. Most people have more than one program. So if you have 3 programs, you'll have 5 classes, one for each program, one for management, one for fundraising. Then, what did I do with QuickBooks? Okay. All right, so look at what we can do here. I'm going to do a report. See if I have it memorized here. Here's a P&L by class. So what this does is it gives us the ability to see not only how much money we spent on each program with a total, but how much we spent on admin and how much we spent on fundraising. And that's exactly what we need to do the audit and to do the tax return. Okay. Yes, you can use subclasses under a program class. That's actually what I did. I'm going to go to the chart, the class list, which is under here, and look at this. I have programs and I have subs underneath it, one for each program. Okay. And then I get a total programs. Now, if you have version 2021 or 22 of QuickBooks Desktop, you're going to see something called collapse columns. If you have an older version, you don't. But in the new versions, you can collapse the subclasses. I'm going to click this, and now I just see for one program, one admin, one fundraising. I can see not only the totals, but I can see how much was each, and I can add percentages. I'm going to click customize report. I'm going to add percentage of row, and I'll zoom in on this so that you can see it. Percentage of row. If you click that, then basically it'll add a percentage column. Let me collapse the rows as well, and I can see for total expenses. And let me zoom in to make it a little bit easier. For total expenses, 70% was for program. Admin is 22. 8.1 is fundraising. You can see that at a push of a button. Okay. Let's see. Somebody's saying, can you use classes for wages? Well, what you would want to do if an individual works in different areas, how would you determine the amount to classify? Would you use percentage of their time? Absolutely, you would. Would we use classes for different entities? How can I separate out those expenses if I can't use class? If you have different entities, you need to have different data files for them. Each business that has its own federal EIN number needs to have its own data file. You shouldn't be running them out of the same QuickBooks. All right. But I will say something about this, and this will be kind of a teaser. Well, if it's the same EIN number, then it's not different entities. Then you could use classes with subclasses. All right. Sarah Drummond agrees. Each entity should have its own set of books. All right. You could use subclasses. You can use subs of subs. You can have an entity with underneath it program, admin, fundraising, and then underneath that the different programs, and then go to the next entity. So you can do that. You can go in 5 levels if you want to. Drive yourself crazy. But anyway, so I want to stop for a second because I feel like we're full up with knowledge, but I just want to leave you with one thought. All right. It's very important that you split up your expenses using these classes: program, admin, fundraising, And if you have separate programs, you definitely want to have one for each program. All right. That's really important. Many expenses are automatically, like the cost of this goes to admin, not a problem. But there are two categories of expenses that should get split between program admin and fundraising. Some people call these the indirect costs, okay? One of them is payroll, and you should absolutely split it using time spent. Some people just guesstimate, well, 30% of this person's time is program and 50% is admin, and the other 20 is fundraising, so that's just how I'm going to do their paycheck. And then if you're with an outside payroll company, you'll need to do journal entries splitting that out. If, however, you're with QuickBooks Payroll, there's a way to do it directly in the QuickBooks Payroll system. In addition to payroll, there's one other group of expenses that need to be allocated, and that is your facility costs. The cost of the rent on your space and the utilities and the insurance on it, maybe the phone and the internet. Those things need to be split. I would split those based on square footage, all right? And I'm going to show you tomorrow how you can get QuickBooks to auto split those things based on percentages that you can get QuickBooks to memorize. They're very, very cool. So that's what I'll leave you with. We will do that tomorrow. Can you please show the slide with the three categories again? Absolutely. The third category I didn't mention is the grant that paid for it. And we're going to cover that tomorrow as well. All right. So I think I'm going to turn it back over to you, Jean, because I think we are at a good stopping point. Please don't be late tomorrow. Please be on time. And if you get a second, take a look at our QuickBooks Made Easy website, because I'm going to give you, you know what, let me go ahead and give the coupons now for those that want to sign up. Let me see where those are. Let me go ahead and do that. Here we go. There we go. So our 3-day webinar series, it's NPQ 40 off. Normally $299, you're going to get $40 off. And the desktop users are May 24th, 25th, and 26th. If you want online on-demand training, here's the codes for that. The bundle, 16 hours of learning on demand, NPQ 298. Instead of 400, it's 298. And then tech support, you can get an entire year of tech support. It's normally $500. We're giving it to you for $300. NPQ TS 299. So go for it, Jean. Let's let him out because we're 1 minute over.
Thank you so much, Greg, and thanks for making those special discounts available to our registrants. So folks, just a reminder that we're back tomorrow for 2 hours. There will be a survey evaluation popping up just to give your feedback and also to sign up for Greg's newsletter. So please stay for a second to complete that, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.